Let's begin from the camp of the opposition National Democratic Congress, because the National Democratic Congress has described its 2024 parliamentary and presidential elections as a triumph of the soul of Ghana against the perceived decadence and corruption of the new patriotic party government. Speaking at the 43rd anniversary of the 31st December Revolution, NDC General Secretary Fifi Kwete criticized the current administration for the unprecedented levels of greed, selfishness, and policy failures.
I just want to, if almost all the time when we celebrate either June 4 or 31st December, I'm always very reluctant to make it a party program. Somehow, I don't know, my spirit doesn't really feel always very comfortable when it's turned into a party program. Because my worry is always this: if we create the impression that these great principles or these foundations belong to only one party and not to the other, it creates a false impression that we have a nation full of angels in one party and full of devils in another. And I've never believed in that. I want to begin by saying that even after 31st December, one of the people who joined the government of the PNDC is President J.A. Kufuor. And there were people who joined from the other side. And in truth, there are many people who still belong to MPP today who deeply believe in these principles. So it's important for us not to make it a we versus them, but to try to always position this day, and also June 4, to be a day that almost transcends one political party and become a national heritage. Because that truly is what this is meant to be. I look forward to a day where MPP will be seated on the stage with us when we celebrate days of this nature. Because the country requires that this patriotic understanding become the bedrock for the whole of the nation. Because sometimes our own people tend to hide under these principles and create impression as if we are perfect and they are not. It is true that what we just witnessed on December 7 was Ghana coming together versus the NPP. The reason was because NPP went to the extreme and totally believed that this country had become their personal property. So the arrogance was unprecedented. The lie was unprecedented. The selfishness became totally unparalleled. We've never seen that level of greed and selfishness. The corruption, the decadence, the depravity, totally unheard of. And in the midst of all that, the policies were not spot on. So poverty became endemic. The poverty in the heart of Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia and his government spread across the whole country. So naturally, the soul of Ghana will rebel. That's why NDC comrades, when we celebrate, I want us not to forget that this victory essentially has been the victory of the soul of Ghana against the decadence of the NPP.
Right, you heard that the General Secretary of the NDC, Fifi Kwete, also Chairman of the United Cadres Front, Shine Gaveh, added his voice to calls impressing on the party to retain Alban Bagbin as Speaker of Parliament for the next session.
We want to request that there are unfinished businesses, and we would want to suggest or propose to National that as early as possible a constitution review committee should be set up to start reviewing the party's constitution ahead of the forthcoming Congress. We also want to add our voices to the numerous voices, and especially to our MPs, that they should retain the Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin. Long live the Keda movement. Long live the NDC. Long live Ghana. Aluta! 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 Continue unabated. Thank you very much.
Watching JoyNews today with me, Kenneth Jesse, will be crossing over very shortly to my colleague Collins Frimpong, who is at that event's grounds. But in the meantime, McDan Aviation is disputing claims the company owes the Ghana Airport Company Limited $3 million, describing such reports as erroneous. CEO of McDan Group, Kweku Amprofi, says the actual amount they owe for rent on the company's fixed base operator private jet terminal is $1.9 million, of which $1.3 million has already been paid. He further expressed disappointment in the Ghana Airport Company Limited's decision to shut down the terminal after disclosing they have been engaging the Ghana Airport management to settle their debt.
The news being peddled around is that McDan owes $3 million, or McDan Aviation owes $3 million on the terminal. That is not correct. There are a couple of issues at stake, and we need to decouple those issues for us to understand exactly what's happening. We do have the FBO, the private jet terminal, which is Terminal 1, that we have a concession for, that we run. And so there's a rent that's due on that every year on that particular facility. We also have a business agreement that we did with Ghana Airport Company Limited in acquiring a piece of land that they owned just around Action Chapel. Now, the debt on the Action Chapel, we've had some conversations with Ghana Airport Company on it. The problem we have with that land is that there's another entity that also claims to have acquired that same piece of land. And so we are in court with that particular entity working through that issue. Now, Ghana Airport has demanded that we pay ground rent on that property. And our argument is that it's not fair for you to require for us to pay when it's in court under litigation. So let's let the court case play out. Because if we win, then we pay you. If we don't win, what happens to the monies we would have paid you in case we lose? So let's let that court case play out. And once that is done and the court determines who has a right to that particular piece of land, then we can sit with you and then determine how that is resolved. So putting all of that together is the $3 million. But on the terminal itself, since inception, the rent that has been due is about $1.9 million. Out of that $1.9 million, we've made payments. We've paid to the tune of $1.3 million. So we're paying on the terminal. It's not like we don't pay or we've never paid anything at all and we owe $3 million. That's inaccurate. It's 1.9. We've paid about 1.3, just a bit over 1.3 on that particular terminal. Now, on Friday, we had a conversation. We had a meeting with Ghana Airport management on Friday, just this past Friday. And we told them that we actually gave them a check, gave them a 2 million CD check as part payment of what is due on the terminal, because prior to that conversation, they always coupled everything together. And in that meeting, we decided that, look, let's not put everything together. Let's decouple the issues. And then we pay you on the terminal while we figure out what to do on the land issue. So we gave them a $2 million check that actually has been presented to a 2 million CD check that actually has been presented to our bank today. Got a call this morning from our bank confirming if we should go ahead, they should go ahead and clear the 2 million CD check that we paid Ghana Airport Company. So I needed to bring that clarity to the two issues. So that's what it is.
So there's been a response from the Ghana Airport Company Limited concerning Magdan Aviation's stance. Let's go through them. And it says the Ghana Airports Company Limited conducts a regular debt collection exercise every month to recover debts owed the company and also round up debt collection for the year. The exercise involves a number of companies operating at Kotoka International Airport that have failed to honor their obligations. In the specific case of Magdan Company Limited, several letters were written to him and meetings were held to ensure the settlement of his outstanding debts as outlined in the table below. So we have the categories, that is rent and other fees for Terminal 1, and the amount in US dollars is $640,233.48. And then you go to the block factory off Spintex Road, which is 5.66 acres. The amount owed is $1.16 million US dollars. And then you come to Airport Logistics Building, which is also off Spintex Road, which is about 10.63 acres. Magdan, according to the Ghana Airport Company Limited, owes $2.16 million US dollars. And then you have the Courier Enclave, which is a space rental of about 0.59 acres. Magdan, according to the airport company, owes $8,140 US dollars. Then you have the Cargo Village, which is also the offices. Magdan owes $18,156.20 US dollars. And the total amount in US dollars is $3.99 million US dollars. And in Ghana cedis, it is 13.5 million Ghana cedis. The communique continues to say that Magdan is required to pay the Ghana Airport Company Limited 15% share of the gross revenue as monthly revenue returns covering the period from the 1st of September 2022 to the 30th of November 2024, which is also outstanding. It continues to say that for the record, Magdan Company Limited paid 2 million Ghana cedis on Friday, the 24th of December, which was just last week, out of the outstanding 3,995,620 US dollars, 66 cents, and 13,523 cedis, 37 pesos. It concludes to say that 4 other companies operating at the airport were closed for non-payment of their debt to the Ghana Airport Company Limited. So that's the statement that Magdan Aviation has released, the Ghana Airport Company Limited has released to debunk the claims made by Magdan Aviation. Let's take you back to one of our headline stories where the High Court has postponed to tomorrow to hear the case involving the disputed constituencies. And my colleague, Kweku Asante, who's a legal affairs correspondent, was in court earlier for us today and he's joined me in studio to tell us more. Kweku, you earlier indicated that there was a bit of, arguments between the 3 councils representing the EC, the MPP, and the NDC. Tell us about that.
So Justice Faustin Ajapon is the presiding judge in this matter. If you look at the lawyers for the New Patriotic Party, Gary Dimako, Dr. Kweku Ajiman-Budu. If you look at the legal team for the NDC, it's led by Godwin Eduji Tamaklu and some very seniors backing him as well, in the presence of Marietta Brew Apiopon, the former Attorney General, Dr. Basid Aziz Bamba, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, as well as Osafo Boabin. And again, the Justice Faustin Ajapon is the one presiding. The case of the NDC is that the mandamus application that the New Patriotic Party is seeking to have the court grant is simply an election petition in disguise. You will recall that the NPP have gone to court together with 4 parliamentary candidates seeking to compel the Electoral Commission to, by an order of mandamus, to recollate the results in those constituencies and have them declared in their favor because they say that they have won when it comes to those constituencies. The NDC said the results have already been declared and any course of action will be an election petition and not a way of mandamus. According to Edudzi Guju Tamaklo, was making the arguments in court, he cited section 16 and 20 of the Representation of the People Law, PNDC Law 284, as amended by 8 and 699, as well as the accompanying documents that the NPP side have put up in court to say that if you look at the substance of the person of the relief they are seeking, they are simply seeking to overturn an election that has already been decided, and that is an election petition. You will recall also that the Electoral Commission had argued that certain issues by way of duress and force were the issues that went on for these officers of the commission to declare the NDC as winners of those parliamentary elections. And the case that I've made is that when it comes to bribery, treatment, and intimidation, it is only when there's an election petition and the case goes through a trial, then you can prove whether or not there have been an intimidation at all when it comes to that. And so their case is that the court does not have jurisdiction in this matter when it comes to this mandamus, unless the NPP comes by way of an election petition. The NPP side responded. Counsel Gary DiMarco says that the preliminary legal objection raised by the NDC was completely misconceived, and that the string of cases Edudzi Guju Tamaklo cited to back his case was simply not applicable to these facts. And then when it came to the Electoral Commission, when Justin Amenuvo, who is a lawyer for the commission, stood up, he only posed one question as a submission to aid the judge in resolving this dispute. He said, how does the person, and that is he was referring to Edudzi, who has raised an objection, expect the court to say whether or not there has been a validly concluded election without going into the affidavit? And in response, Edudzi Guju Tamaklo says, to determine whether or not an election has been validly concluded, you need to come by way of an election petition. And so that is the argument that have been made strenuously in court today by the three parties in this matter.
And what has been the response of the parties? We've been hearing from the MPP,
Yes.
the EC, and of course the NDC as well.
So all these arguments have now been made in court. It is now up to the justice to resolve this dispute. And so the justice says he has heard the arguments. He is going to think about it. He's going to look at all the documents and arguments made in court today. And so tomorrow, 1st January 2025, it is a holiday, but the Chief Justice has warranted that any election dispute that is currently before the courts, the court are at liberty to sit on holidays to dispose of them. And so tomorrow, the High Court judge will look at these facts that have been put before him and make a determination. So two things will happen. If the judge decides that this matter is an election petition, for which reason he does not have the jurisdiction by way of a mandamus application, then that case will be dismissed. If he decides that he has jurisdiction and this is not an election petition in disguise as mandamus, then he will go ahead and hear the substantive mandamus application. The NDC will also make its case, and then the arguments will be put forward, and then he will ultimately make a judgment in that. And so tomorrow we'll get to know what exactly the judge thinks about the arguments made in court today.
Of course, and you've been speaking to the majority leader, Afenyo Markin. What has he been telling you?
Well, right after the hearing, there were a lot of chanting in court. The NDC supporters who were there, the MPP supporters as well, they were chanting of the various anthems. The lawyers are not willing to speak to the record because tomorrow is judgment day. They want to hear the judgment first before they will speak. But Alexander Afenyo Markin, majority leader, says he believes that the NPP has made a very strong case in court and that ultimately victory will be theirs at the end of this process.
A court process may be slow, but with surety you will get the results when you know you are on firm grounds. What it is about this, simply put, the Electoral Commission itself has stated with emphasis that there is no such thing as a declaration of results in Okaikwe Central, Ablekuma North, and Tema Central, as well as Domiko Abenya. So they have already administratively declared those results as illegal, and the Electoral Commission is doing it well. So this argument that they declared results is neither here nor there. However, we have firm belief that in the end we will be victorious. There's no rush. We are following due process. You realize that initially they were on a path of violence. At least we've managed to bring them to the courtroom. We have managed to bring them to civility. we have managed to get them to abide by the.
Well, from the courts, let's talk about Inferno, because the Ghana National Fire Service has identified gas leakage as the second leading cause of fires in 2024, while electrical faults maintained its #1 spot as the leading cause of fire. The country also experienced a 6.43% increase in fires between January and November, with 5,596 fire incidents. In an interview earlier with JoyNews, the head of public relations of the service, Desmond Aka, mentioned electrical faults as the leading cause of fires, with gas leakages as the second.
We have done well over 30% of these fires emanating from our domestic setting, meaning that there are a lot of things that we are doing in our homes and residential apartments that is not really helping us to be able to keep the fires at bay. And the most common causative factor is electrical fault. Electrical fault is very broad, stemming from egg faults, stemming from overrated cables, stemming from short circuits, arcing, and a whole lot of faults that come up from these electrical appliances and circuitry. And therefore, it behoves on us to always ensure that we engage competent, certified electrical engineers and then contractors to be able to do the electrical works for us in order to stem out these electrical fires from our domestic setting. And the next leading cause of fire is gas leakages. A lot of people use gas in cooking, but they tend not to put in all the safety protocols. You will go and you will find people put heavy objects on the regulators and will not even care to even change the tube that connects the stove or the burner to the cylinder. And these are the sources of the gas leakages. And that is even maiming people, causing a lot of people to get injured through these burns and all that. So in as much as we have intensified our education, we will look at all these causative factors and then utilize them in our educational messages to ensure that people adhere to some of these safety. And around this time of the year, people tend to be a bit more careless with the use of naked light, especially around our residential apartment. We tend to gather rubbish, we tend to weed around, we tend to burn them, but we tend not to put in safety measures to ensure that the refuse that we are burning, we stand there to ensure that they burn to completion, and that even if things escalate, we have extinguishers or buckets of water to contain the situation. They just set the fires to the bush and then leave it. People also depend on the natural vegetation for game or for firewood or charcoal and wild honey and all that. And this is not the time for us to engage in such activities. So we will continue to leverage on the over 6,000 fire volunteers that we have trained across our farming communities who are helping to kind of educate the masses on the dangers of ensuring that we keep the naked fires out of our natural setting.
Away from that, Executive Director of the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development, Daniel Banyuoku, has emphasized that seeds form the foundation of the agricultural system, warning that losing them could lead to a new form of colonialization. He called on the government to collaborate with indigenous seed producers to develop farmer input kits and promote seed diversity. Daniel Banyuoku made these remarks during the seed and food festive season held in Tanchari in the Laura municipality of the Upper West region.
This year's Seed and Food Festival, held at Chanchara by the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development, CICOD, saw significant participation, especially from women who displayed a wide variety of 41 seeds that included millet, sorghum, pumpkins, bambara beans, okra, yams, sobolo, maize, granules, and moringa. A remarkable array of 25 to 49 local dishes prepared from these seeds also drew enthusiastic attention. Young participants, both male and female, were taken through the exhibition to learn about local food preparation and the nutritional value of indigenous dishes. Deputy Executive Director of SECORD, Daniel Banoko, noted that the 2024 Seed and Food Festival focused on youth, encouraging them to learn from their parents.
Today we are happy that you can see a wide range of youth, boys and girls, interacting with parents, basically to go through local seeds, understand what they are, their nutritional value, and how they can help us build resilience, and then also to look at the food that is actually produced from these seeds. Seed forms the basic unit and foundation of our agriculture system. And once we lose it, we are completely lost as a society, and we will leave ourselves out to corporate capture and another form of colonization of the African continent. So we want to encourage our farmers and also encourage our government to continue to work with local seed producers, develop farmer seed systems, and to improve the diversity of seeds that can end up improving the diversity of nutrients and food that end up on the table or on the shelves in the market.
Ninkpi Sota, a dietitian from the Babli Polyclinic, outlined the importance of indigenous foods and their role in promoting good health.
The kind of food you eat will help you live longer or fall sick. The kind of food you eat will determine your health. And as it is, we have a produce on our table. We group them into 4-star diet, which is just the 4 main food groups. We have the staples, which are the cereals and the tubers that give us energy. We have the legumes that are plant-based protein that help us with digestion and metabolism and all those things. We also have fruit and vegetables that give us antibodies that boost our immune system. We also have the animal-based protein, which are eggs, fish, meat, and whatever. So it also helps give us blood and repair our tissues and for muscle growth.
One young participant, Dere Agata from Koro, shared her experience with JoyNews.
I've learned that the olden days food are good to us. And then if you compare the olden days food and now the modern days food, they are not the same. Sometimes you take the modern days food, the next day maybe you'll be sick or you are going to hospital. But the olden days food, they don't use spices like Maggi and other things to prepare. So if you take it, it gives you some kind of energy that is different from the modern type food. So that's why.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam, Kanchara.
Return from the break with the latest in business.
Hi, good afternoon and welcome to the business segment on JoyNews today with me, Pius Kojobaka. The Bank of Ghana will not be changing the total amount of dollars it plans to sell to bulk oil distributors of petroleum products for every first 3 months of the year. This was captured in the forward auction calendar for the first quarter of 2025. More in this report.
The Bank of Ghana in the first quarter of 2024 sold $120 million to the bulk oil distribution companies to aid the imports of finished petroleum products. It was expected that, looking at the fact that the local currency usually comes under some pressure in the first quarter of every year, the Bank of Ghana would have looked at releasing more dollars to support these imports. However, the regulator of the banking sector does not think so. In the auction calendar released last week, it is planning to sell $120 million to these bulk oil distribution firms from January to March next year. One is not sure for now whether, per the Bank of Ghana's own internal analysis, it doesn't think that the cedi will come under the perennial first quarter pressure.
And we want to stay a while longer at the central bank because it is taking some measures to help risk associated with transactions carried out by other financial institutions. This is to ensure that the central bank releases the draft regulation of exposure directive. We've got more for you in this report.
The Bank of Ghana, by this release, is seeking public views on this draft before it becomes the new set of regulations guiding the activities of other financial institutions like savings and loans. However, this exposure directive is not seeking to regulate the activities of commercial banks in the country. The Bank of Ghana in the draft document, for instance, want to limit the maximum losses that regulated financial institutions can incur in the event of sudden failure of counterparty transactions, or what the Bank of Ghana describes as connected parties. This, the regulator believes, will go a long way to ensure that it does not endanger these institutions going forward. The Bank of Ghana, by this move, is also working to ensure that there is an established framework for large financial transactions that could be tied to the capital requirement of each firm. The regulator is also proposing that there should be some limit on the amount that the specialized deposit-taking institutions can hold. The central bank, by this draft regulation, is also seeking to let these firms focus on lending to small and medium-sized enterprises that will help in aiding the growth of the sector.
And that's all for business for now. I am Pius Kojo-Baka. I will be at 1 p.m. with the marketplace.
Welcome back. And in sports today, President of Ghana Athletics, Bawa Fuseni, says his office will engage the new administration to set up a local organizing committee for the African Athletics Seniors Championships to be staged in Ghana in 2026. Ghana won the hosting rights for the Continental Athletics Championships in June this year and has been tasked by the Confederation of African Athletics to stage a good game.
That is a big one. It's a huge one because the expectation from the CAA is huge. Last week, I even had a meeting with the Secretary General, Chief Executive Officer of the CAA. They're expecting much bigger. Because they only believe that Ghana has all what it takes to pull a very huge African championships in Africa. And we have to start work as soon as the new government set in. We are waiting for the new Minister of Youth, new Minister of Sports to assume office. Then we'll ask the new government or the new state to form an LOC, right from the state or the government to the Minister of Youth and Sport, together with the Ghana Athletics, will form the LOC. And that's where we have to start work. Even though we already started talking to people for media coverage, for organization, for advertising, we have already started working. We cannot wait to start work very late. We have barely 1.5 years, and we have to make best out of the time. Because not only CA is interested in the African Championships in Ghana, World Athletics is also wanting to come. They couldn't come for the African Games. I can tell you all of them. The World Athletics Council, also preparing, hinted us that they will be in Ghana. You can imagine how the whole World Athletics Council want to come to Ghana for the African Championship. You can imagine how all the expectation that they are expecting from Ghana. So we can fail the world, we can fail the CAA. As soon as the government settle down, the first thing that we have to do as an association is to bring to their notice that this is what we need to do. We want you to form the LOC, and from there we can formalize everything. We cannot fail, and will not fail Africa, will not fail the world. African Championship will be one of the best that we can expect from Ghana.